If you've been following us, you'll know that we're taking our boat from Yorkshire to Cambridgeshire via the Wash. This means leaving the calm and safety of the Stockwith and Keadby Canal to navigate the fast-flowing tidal Trent to the Fostike navigation. We'll do this in 2 passages. Day 1, Keadby Lock to Gainsborough, and Day 2, Gainsborough to Keadby Lock.
We have scheduled a departure for tomorrow. Very exciting. So the deal with the lock is, of course, we can only be let out 1 hour before high water. This should give us enough time to get down to Gainsborough, the floating pontoon. We're just going to move the boat so that we are closer to the bridge. So tomorrow morning, which is going to be 7:15 departure, we can at least be ready for when they open up the road bridge to allow us into the lock. So just literally moving 100 metres or so. Here we are in our new home for the night, just dealing with some essentials. First essential, of course, is anchor, absolutely essential. We have one of these in case there's a problem on the river. So we've got this folding anchor here with about 10 metres of 10mm chain and a great big rope attached to it as well. So just bowling it onto the shackle of the chain, and then I obviously want to wrap this up in such a way that if I deploy it, it runs out free without getting caught. Well, it's the day of reckoning. We are all ready, as you can see. The bimini is down, engine check's done, and I can see the lockkeeper's car is there, so I can see him in his tower. He's probably going to radio through in a minute and just let us know that he's ready. Then we just wait for the green light.
We're in the lock. That's the sound of the alarm going for the bridge, which is now closing. Cars are going across. We're now just waiting for the lockkeeper to close the lock. He controls the road bridge as well, nothing I have to do. So the view from the cockpit, you can see the shorter gates in front of us, the smaller gates, and then in front of them are the really big gates that take us onto the river. At the moment, both are closed and they will remain closed while the rear gates are closing. So now we're moving forward. We go through the smaller gates that he's just opened. So these are the next gates, which will also be closed behind us. In fact, he's closing them already. So that means that we will then be safely in the lock with 2 gates behind us, stopping any water getting out onto the canal. Middle section is opening. Apparently the river is higher at the moment. So we've now got 2 gates shut behind us. We've got one smaller gate open in front, and then we've got...
Going up a matter of foot or so. I'm just going to open these panels now. Okay?
Thank you, Richard.
That was Richard the locky. He wouldn't have heard any of that. He's just saying that there's not much difference, maybe like, I don't know, 10 centimetres, 20 centimetres at the maximum. And he will open the big gates now. So there will be some water coming in, and then off we go. There she goes. There are the big gates opening right now. Let's hope they open. We've had weeks and weeks of problems with this lock. There goes one gate. The other one's a bit jangly. Oh, hello. Ah, yes. And there's the Trent in front of us. Here's the skipper really concentrating hard. I can't ask him any questions, he'll get really cross with me if I do. So from this direction, from this position, it looks like there's quite a bit of flow there. So we're going to pop out of this straight into the water and do a hard right.
All clear.
All clear, he says.
Thank you, Richard.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
All right, I'll probably see you up at my stop in a couple of hours. Going up there now. Let's go.
Okay.
So when Jamie was here last week, he watched 2 narrowboats go out and they just went on their sides. But it seems that because the widebeam is that much bigger and heavier, we haven't been pushed over. So things haven't fallen off the shelf yet. Right, in front of us is Keadby Railway bridge. So we just need to, that's our first hurdle to get through. One of the disadvantages of our boat is that we have a steering wheel and hydraulic steering rather than a tiller. Oh, it looks very swish and posh and everything, but with a tiller you can literally feel every little movement of the boat and you feel that you have a lot more control over your steering. So we'll be a bit loopy, but luckily the Trent's a nice wide river and it's high at the moment, the water, so we haven't got to worry too much about it being shallow. Couldn't get it on camera with this small lens, but a barn owl just flew directly in front of us. Stunning bird. I've always wanted to see one. That's the first time I've seen one. It's just the most beautiful, lovely thing to see first thing. So here we go. All the charts say go through this side. Jamie's got a firm grip of the wheel, doing really well, very precise, it's really great.
Well, it's all good so far. It's just nice to get that initial entrance into the Trent over and done with. I was getting quite anxious about that, but now that we're on the Trent, I did spot we're doing something like 5.7 knots, which might actually be a bit too quick, bearing in mind our timings. But Liz is on the helm at the moment and she's doing great. Nice and wide. Happidaze is steering like she would on the canal. You know, one of the problems that I was worried about was currents pushing her around, but we made a point of filling up the water tanks at the front to keep the weight down in the bow. So yeah, it's all good. What's most striking so far is the birdsong. We're just surrounded by birdsong, and as Liz said, we saw a barn owl fly over Happidaze. How about that, eh? What a great start. One of my main concerns about doing tidal rivers was the steerage of the boat. As you know, we've got hydraulic steering. But on the canals, because you're going so slowly, I find that it can be quite tricky. It's taken a few months to get used to it. But it actually lends itself quite well to these tidal rivers. It is pretty responsive. I think what we used to do, which was a mistake, was to oversteer, but you're actually, with hydraulic steering, you're only dealing with micro movements. So it means that if you turn the wheel hard over, you do turn quite quickly, which, when you're going around corners on a tidal river, is actually very useful. These corners, especially the 90-degree bends. You can imagine the water sort of channels around that bend, and it picks up speed. One of the biggest issues really is not the steering, but the amount of debris on the water. There's a lot of twigs, branches and bits of reed and even floating sacks of things. I don't know what they are. Liz just said, I'll plough through them. And I said, no, you need to avoid them. And sure enough, on one 90-degree bend, I couldn't get out of the way of some debris because it was in our path. And the prop hit something. I think it was only quite small, just a small branch, but you heard it being churned up by the prop. So I'm trying my best to avoid as much debris as possible. And in fact, as I talk to you now, look, there's some there. And then up ahead on the next corner is a big floating sack. And we've seen a few of these and I've no idea what they are.
So far, so good. We're more than halfway through and it's been very quiet on the river. I haven't seen any other traffic at all. I've been relieving Jamie on the wheel now and again just to help him so he can do odds and sods and bend his back and whatnot. And I find it quite simple really. It's because it's nice and wide. There are no waves to worry about. And although it is hydraulic steering and it's a small steering wheel, it's quite similar to our old boat, our yacht, which obviously had an enormous wheel. So I don't mind steering on these big wide waters at all. In fact, I prefer those to the canal. So it's very, very pretty. It is really pretty. It's very different to being on the canals because of the width and the enormous sky, uninterrupted sky. Absolute painter's dream, these clouds. It was quite cloudy earlier, but we've got the sun out now, which is lovely. Been past a few villages and been through some very pretty areas with some extremely gorgeous looking houses with rolling lawns down to the water, 2 or 3 windmills that have been converted into homes. It's just, I would have thought an idyllic place to live. I was saying to Jamie, if we win the lottery, I would like to buy one of those. Especially one that had, it seemed to have a whole woodland around it as well. We could just open the door, Marley could go out and play as much as he liked, and we could put a little boat at the bottom, have our own mooring. Anyway, to dream. There's still quite a flow. You can see the things floating in the water. They are zooming along, not quite as fast as us, but they're doing it at quite a good speed, so we're still very much a flood tide at the moment. Some big old bits of floating stuff in the water here. Obviously it's a high tide and it's a spring tide, so a lot of stuff's being collected from the riverbanks and thrown into the Trent. Jamie's doing his best to avoid it. Just going past now. This is the entrance to Stockwith Basin onto the Chesterfield Canal.
Richard, our lock keeper at Keadby, had told us I'm going down to West Stockwith now. Now, we had been told that it wasn't going to be manned today because no one was scheduled to come in, but it actually proved useful because I was able to ring him up as we passed West Stockwith and just gave him a status of how we're doing and the fact we're running, a little bit late, but not too late. And he was able to confirm that we're perfectly fine to continue as we are. There's actually still a little bit of flood. So it's a little bit later than it was scheduled to turn. So at the moment, this is still to our advantage. And ideally what we want is, as we get to Gainsborough, is for that tide to have turned so that we then are motoring against a little bit of current just to get us onto that pontoon. What we want to avoid, of course, is to be steaming along with 3 knots of current. So as I look now, I can see there is still a bit of current with us, but it's definitely slowed down.
Marley's been guarding the plants for me. I had to take them off the front because we weren't really quite sure if there would be any water coming over, if we would heal or anything like that. So they're all in here and Marley's doing his job and guarding them. He's wearing his life jacket. Why are you panting, hey? Oh, it'll be over soon, little one. Yeah, it'll be over soon. Yeah.
Don't watch, you're putting me off.
left hand down a bit.
Yeah.
It's nice and slow, it's lovely. Nice and slow. I don't want to trip over one of these tubes. I can edge along actually.
Yeah. So here we are at Gainsborough. Perfect manoeuvre. We had the tide, a little bit of tide against us, so it's very easy to moor up here. Liz hopped off and then I came in with the back end. Had an audience, had a few people watching and even got a round of applause when we moored up. How about that, eh?
Lovely. Straighten up.
Thank you. I wouldn't have done it without you.
Where'd you want this?
So what's there to say about this place? Well, I think I just need a coffee first. I found that pulling those lines, we wanted to pull the boat forward a bit to let the other boat in, it does my back in a bit, so I just need to rest, just need to unwind, and then maybe we'll take Marley for a little sniff into town.
Slipping through my fingers.
We've had a very nice relaxing day here in Gainsborough. Just basically chilling out, went for a little wander around town. It's very pleasant. Tide's coming back in now, so we're getting an idea of the kind of water we're going to have to be departing this pontoon from tomorrow, and the water is racing past. It's going to be quite interesting because the pontoon is on a little indent, so when we come to leave we have to sort of push out to get out into the middle of the river, and of course we're going to be pushed forwards very quickly, so it'll be interesting to see how we get on with that manoeuvre.